Hey everybody, Mah-Dry-Bread here. Who's ready for a flame war? Trick question, everyone is. You knew what you were getting into because this is a video about who's the best companion in Fallout 4. Now when I say the best companion, I'm purely talking mechanically. I don't care if Garvey's name reminds you of gravy and you like gravy. I care that he's got a good companion perk and a default weapon that doesn't completely suck. Right, John? Oh, and there's a surprise for you at the end of the video, so stick around. Before we start, we need to lay down some ground rules. No mods, because I can't possibly account for that. This is all tested with no DLC, so it's as accessible as possible. Every character will be judged with their perk already earned to make them more unique. Default guns matter because they have unlimited ammo, but I'm assuming you'll replace that gun at some point. And this is all meant to be practical information you can take with you the next time you play, so we're gonna have to take into account that the AI sucks at some things. Right, John? Alright, I'm gonna break this down into 5 tiers. Top tier, high tier, mid tier, low tier, and garbage tier. I wonder who's in garbage tier! Okay, let's just do this. Garbage tier, John Hancock. He gets a whole tier of his own. I just can't find any reason to justify using this guy. His default gun is a sawn-off shotgun, a weapon that the AI is just terrible at using. Most of the time they're too far away to hit anything with it, or getting themselves killed trying to get close. Here's the genius trying to snipe a raider on another building. Look at that health bar as he shoots, if you want to see how effective it is. And he's down. He can't even hit an immobile enemy right in front of him. His perk lets you charge critical hits 20% faster, but only if you have 250 rads or more. That means you need to give up at least a quarter of your max health, just for a small critical hit charging bonus. Outside of that, all he does is give you free chems from time to time. The only thing that would make him worth using is if you put really good equipment on him, but you could do the same thing with just about anyone. Onto the low tier, we're starting with Codsworth. Codsworth is equipped with a flamer and a buzzsaw, making him pretty powerful in close combat and early game, although very limited at a range, and that right there pretty much describes his entire weakness. He can't change his equipment and there's no real way to fix him without DLC. His armor is always going to be quite low, and he'll never be any good at dealing damage to anything past close range. Even in close range, he isn't going to be able to take on anything particularly dangerous. To make matters worse, his pathfinding usually gets confused, more than usual, inside buildings, making him have a hard time getting in close enough to fight. I mean, look at this, he can't even get past a street light in a wide open road. His perk just gives you 10 plus energy resistance against robots, a bonus so weak and weirdly specific that you'll never even notice you have it. To top it all off, Codsworth can't even heal with stim packs. He's good for protecting you in the very start of the game, but he should be replaced pretty early on. Next on the tier list is Piper, who has nothing special going for her. There isn't much to say. Her default weapon is a 10mm pistol, which you're not getting far without giving her a new gun and constant ammo. Her perk just gives you double experience for charisma checks and discovering new locations. And sometimes she gives you candy. The experience is so minor you'll hardly notice it. And can you think of one candy in the game you'd actually use? Because I can't. Really, the only thing that makes her any better than Hancock is that her infinite ammo gun will actually hit something, and she's less likely to run directly into the center of a group of enemies trying to get in range. Last of the lower tier is Deacon, the stealthiest character in the game. Deacon isn't terrible, but he suffers from being a bit niche. His default gun is a sniper rifle that he's actually pretty good with, and he has the high sneak stat in the game, so he's unlikely to blow your cover. And his perk increases your sneak damage by 20% and stealth boy duration by 40%. What makes Deacon so low on the list is that you need to specialize your build heavily to make good use of him. He's only going to be worth using over others if you go heavily into stealth, and even then you might be just better off going dog meat with the lone wolf perk. Look at it this way, how many sneak attacks are you really going to get in a single fight? And do you even bother with stealth boys more than half a dozen times in the game? Stealth is fantastic in survival difficulty, but on survival usually you want the lone wolf perk, and that requires you ditch your companion, so you'll have a hard time finding a reason to use Deacon. Onto the mid tier, we start with X688. Side note, did you even know this guy was a companion? You can only get him extremely late game when joining the Institute, and he has no personality. Literally, he does the emotionless robot speak and everything. Even literal robots in the game don't talk like that. Gameplay-wise, he's about as bland and bog standard as his character. His perk gives you plus 20 energy resistance, and sometimes he gives you free fusion cells. The only thing that brings this guy up to mid-tier is that his Institute laser rifle is actually pretty good at close range. He'll miss a lot at long range, but up close he'll actually rack up quite a bit of damage. By the time you get him though, you'll have much better choices. Next is McCready, the ex-leader of Little Lamplight from Fallout 3. He's basic, but with a solid perk and ability. He gives you random ammo packs and sometimes even fusion cores, and his perk gives you 20% greater chance to hit the head in VATS. If you're gonna go with a VATS heavy build, this is actually one of the best companion perks. Plus a sniper rifle makes him a lot more reliable than your average companion. Think of him kinda like a version of Deacon that would help the average character a lot more. Anyone can find extra head hit chance and free ammo useful. Next is Preston Garvey, who gets by entirely by having a good weapon and perk. His perk increases your damage resistance by 20 and your damage output by 20% when against 3 or more opponents. Considering just how often that happens, this is a really useful perk. When using a strong weapon like a laser musket, 20% is often the difference between a near kill and a full-on kill. Speaking of, Garvey uses a laser musket. It's by far the strongest hitting default weapon of any companion, but suffers from a very long reload between each shot, and the fact that Garvey has the worst aim known to man. In close range, you can count on him to deal a lot of damage, but anything beyond that, and you may as well be rolling dice. Give him some heavy armor and keep him around for the great perk. Lastly, for mid-tier, we have the Miss Nanny form of Curie. Curie is a deceptively mediocre companion. On paper, she looks amazing, sporting a ridiculous health of 440 rather than health that scales with your level like everybody else. For comparison, you need to be about level 50 for other companions to have the same health as her. However, she can't wear any armor, she doesn't have any built-in damage resistance, and is a huge target. Because of that, she'll still get knocked out a lot faster than any other companion would in low-quality power armor. Much like Codsworth, she has a buzzsaw, so she's good in melee, and for a ranged weapon, she's got a pretty good laser rifle. She can't switch weapons, but at least what she has is good. She'll also occasionally give you free stim packs, and her perk lets you heal by 100 hit points once a day when you drop below 10% of your health. She's great if you don't have very good gear to give a human companion, but otherwise there are better choices earlier in the game. Now we're finally onto the high tier, starting with Nick Valentine. Valentine is one of the two characters who are considered useful mostly because of their utility roles rather than their combat. In combat, Valentine is pretty average, sporting a slightly above average health, a little bit of natural armor but the inability to wear regular armors, and a decent pipe revolver. Where he really shines though is his ability to hack terminals for you. Point him towards even a master terminal and he'll hack it for you. He has a chance of failing, but he won't lock you out of it if you want to give it a try. He does have long-term potential, as despite his lack of armor to wear, he can still go in power armor, and the above average health does make him a little bit better than most in that role. His perk may be the worst in the game though. You get one more guess when hacking terminals and half the lockout time. Considering if you have one guess left, you can just leave and re-enter the terminal, it's completely useless. Second on the high tier list is our other great utility character, Kate. Let's get our big downfall out of the way first. Same absolutely terrible sawn-off shotgun as Hancock, where you need to spill goat's blood counterclockwise into an inverted pentagram at midnight to get her to hit a target 5 feet in front of her, but at least she is good at everything else. Her big utility is that she can pick any lock once you've given her some bobby pins. That includes master locks, and it is insanely useful if you don't want to dump a bunch of perk points into lockpicking skill. She's also surprisingly adept at melee combat, making her a good candidate for loading armor on her and sending her in as a bullet sponge. Plus, if you put chems in her inventory, she'll use them on her own, making her even better. Her perk is lame though, 25% faster AP regeneration if your hit points are below 25%. Wait, no, that's not what the perk actually does. The actual in-game description is wrong because Bugthesda doesn't like to fix things. Apparently, according to the internet, it actually gives you 50% faster AP regeneration if your AP is below 25%. I mean, it's useful, but how weird is that perk? Also, why is the description wrong? Can't Bethesda just patch this crap? I mean, I had to use console commands just to get Deacon and Curie to show up because they vanished into the ether when I told them to go to the Red Rocket truck stop, and I still get stuck in the walking up to a terminal animation and softlock like 10% of the time. Even in survival difficulty, Bethesda, fix the game! Oh god, no. Oh god, no! This is the worst! Right, Kate's one of the better characters, picking locks for you and stuff. Sweet. Next, we're on to two strange ones, starting with Dogmeat. Dogmeat is a very unique companion in that it's a combat support character who isn't actually good at fighting. He can only fight in melee, yet will lose to most melee-focused enemies. He can't wear armor, and he has below average health. Where he shines, though, is that he is a small target that can waste a lot of the enemy's time. He can grab them and hold them in place for you, and can even cause status effects. Rather than doing a quest or befriending him to get perks, you simply spend points on the attack dog perk when leveling up, causing his hold to become more useful. First by increasing your VAT's hit chance against whoever he's holding, then to cripple them, and finally to make them bleed. This is actually very strong, especially if you're heavily VATS focused character. Strangely enough, perhaps the strongest thing about him isn't what he does, but what he doesn't do. The Lone Wanderer perk gives you massive bonuses if you don't travel with the companion, starting with taking 15% less damage from all attacks, and the ability to carry 50 more weight worth of items, and later increasing your damage resistance to 30% and increasing your damage output by 25%. These are some of the biggest bonuses in the game, and for whatever reason, Dogmeat does not disable this ability. Because of this, you can make a fearsome tank build based on Lone Wanderer while still traveling with a pretty good companion. Is it a glitch or a feature? You decide. The last of the high tier is Strong, the super mutant. Strong is a contender for the best combat companion without needing a big investment of equipment. Between his very high amount of hit points, his sledgehammer, and his absolutely ridiculous strength stat of 24, he can demolish most non-melee enemies from up close. If he corners anyone using a gun, it's pretty much a death sentence for them. Not only that, but he can still use guns from a long range as long as they're not pistols, and is smart enough to grab them off bodies after he kills someone if the next target is too far away, so he can do some damage while he closes the distance. He especially excels with classic super mutant weapons like miniguns and rocket launchers. Unfortunately, he can only wear super mutant armors, so he'll never have a very high damage resistance, and he's a pretty huge target. Also, he's completely unable to do stealth, but they're small trade-offs for an otherwise extremely powerful character. He has a pretty weak trait that gives you 20% bonus to melee damage if your health is below 25%, something you'd never want to let happen. Also, he gives you meat. Just thought I'd throw that in there. For as good as Strong is though, there's still two characters better. First, for the top tier, we have Dance. Dance is a Brotherhood of Steel member who always wears power armor, and for as useful as that sounds, he's actually even better than you might think. Normally you can tell any human-shaped companion to wear power armor, but it will still get damaged and need repairs from time to time. Not only does Dance come with his own power armor, but if you give him better power armor manually, whatever you give him will never get damaged. On top of that, if you do his personal quest, he gets decked out in even better power armor for free. Between that and his default weapon being a laser rifle, he's extremely effective in combat. Lastly, he has a bit of a hit and miss perk that lets you deal 20% more damage to synths, ghouls, and super mutants. Depending on what ending you're going for, that'll range from great to useless. But it's finally time for the best companion in the game, the synth form of Curie. This is a character that I think a lot of people don't realize just how good she is. The synth form of Curie has the absolute most health in the game of any companion, at an insane 670 hit points, the same as being level 107 with any other companion. She keeps her great laser rifle from when she was a Miss Nanny, but no longer has the weakness of being unable to wear armor. In fact, she can now wear power armor, and this is what makes her the best companion in the game. 670 hit points, well, in even the weakest suits of power armor, makes Curie nearly indestructible, capable of walking into the most insane of firefights and drawing everyone's attention to herself, leaving you open to pick people off one by one. It feels like the game is on very easy mode, the way she can walk through flamethrowers and survive mini-nukes without even needing a stim pack. She has one big weakness in that, thanks to a glitch, she still somehow thinks that she has a buzzsaw arm and will often move in from melee combat with her fists. And although people report this being fixed after dismissing her and getting her back a day later, that never worked for me. Thankfully, because she's so ridiculously invincible, you may as well just give her a super sledge for when she moves in from melee combat and let her have fun, because chances are she'll take care of the entire battle for you. Just put her in a suit of power armor and you've made yourself a war machine. Speaking of making a thing, did you notice that I made this video and it's really shit? That's because what you're watching is my horrible Frankenstein monster re-edit of an old video I made 6 months ago back when I was working for Shoddycast that never made air. As a result, the entire outro of this video doesn't make sense anymore and I'm just improvising into the microphone, so let's riff on the original outro. Here's where I was going to link me showing how I made this video. That had to be scrapped now because it doesn't make sense anymore. If you'd watched that though, maybe I'll do that with the next one. The next one will be how you beat Fallout 4 survival mode, by the way, because I did that and it fucking sucked. This is how you can subscribe to Shoddycast. I edited the video title in Chrome. This is Shoddycast's Patreon. Now that I don't work for them, feel free to go to my Patreon instead if you'd like to support me on any more of these Lovecraftian horrors that I call videos. Thank you very much for watching. I have links to playlists on more videos like this in the description if you'd like them. And until next time, have a nice day.